What's up, everybody? Welcome to SWAT MMA, where we're smoking weed and we're talking mixed martial arts. My name is Jarrod. I'm here with Paul.
What up?
We're coming to you from the fight capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. This is episode number 106, and today we're going to be smoking and talking all about last week's UFC action, plus a look ahead to the pivotal 135-pound showdown between former champion TJ Dillashaw and top contender Cory Sandhagen. We're going to get into boxing, including the BKFC 19 card, headlined by Paige VanZant versus Rachael Ostovich. Plus, we're going to discuss the showdown we just saw between Charlo versus Castano at 154 pounds. We're going to take a look at some interesting fight announcements in the UFC, including the return of one Nick Diaz. But before we get into all the combat sports action, you know what time it is. Grab your weed, fire it up, and let's dive it into the weed of the week.
Smoke weed every day.
My goodness, Paul, through that whole intro, I felt like I had to cough too.
What?
You and me both. Sound like a couple of smokers over here. All right, well, today we have got just one kind of flower and one kind of wax. Paul is over there hitting in our Puffco some Tropicana Cookies wax, which if you've been listening to the show the past few weeks, you already know all about. But we're adding some Larry Bird Kush to the mix today, a.k.a. the Great White Hope. Larry Bird Kush is a cross between Sunset Sherbet and Thin Mint Cookies, Paul. And, of course, Sunset Sherbet, I'll break that down a little bit. That's Girl Scout cookies crossed with pink panties. And Girl Scout cookies is, of course, OG Kush crossed with one of the few remaining pure sativa strains in the world, Durban Poison, which, unfortunately, the city of Durban in South Africa, where that strain is from, has been in the news lately with some rioting and everything. But that is the same Durban, if you're wondering. Pink Panties is a cross between a Burmese Kush and a Florida Kush back cross. And Thin Mint Cookies is a Girl Scout Cookies phenotype. So we've got Girl Scout Cookies all over the place here.
Yes, sir.
How's this Great White Hope? I haven't hit this yet. That's what I'm going to call it. I think that's the awesomest name ever.
Well,
I remember when...
Tastes like it's good from 3. It's good from the mid-range. Has good moves.
Yeah. He's just lacking that power, huh?
Yeah.
The last Great White Hope boxer.
This dude got knocked out by Tyson.
I was thinking Tommy Morrison was.
Wasn't?
He was a Great White Hope. No, I was just trying to think of the last time that term was really used. When I was boxing, it was Tommy Morrison was the guy. Like when I was coming up.
Who was the guy that they named that got knocked out by Tyson? Got knocked through the ropes.
Oh, Jerry Cooney? Yeah. He was the original Great White Hope. That big old goofy motherfucker.
Knocked the fuck out.
Yeah, he got fucked up. But then Tommy Morrison came along, and he would have been legit. Tragic tale of Tommy. Yeah. We're not going to dive into that. We're trying to have a good mood today. But Tommy had that mean left hook, though. Tommy Morrison was a Great White Hope with a killer left hook. Yeah. But Larry Bird.
Larry Bird is the greatest Great White Hope nickname ever, probably.
Dude, for real. Larry Bird don't get enough respect on his name in the modern NBA.
No, never will.
People don't know about his greatness.
Larry
You should
Bird
YouTube that shit. I've noticed a lot of YouTube videos popping up lately about Larry Bird and how he's like not given the credit he deserves for being the genius that he was.
He was the shit. People sleep on Larry Bird. Larry Bird is probably, behind LeBron, he's probably the second greatest small forward of all time.
There you go.
Yeah, behind LeBron and Jordan. Like him, LeBron, Kobe, and Jordan are all like peers in my eyes.
But he gets left out of that conversation of those guys. Yeah, of course, Magic. But he shouldn't.
It's just so hard because basketball has been around for so long. There's been so many fucking players come and go, that like to give credit and not give credit is so easy because you've seen so many fucking different players come and go.
And we're still in the young days of mixed martial arts.
Yeah. Same thing with like boxing. Boxing, same thing. People can sit there until their freaking ears bleed talking about who's the greatest boxer of all time, but there's just been so many. It's hard to really pinpoint who's the greatest.
You can't even narrow it down really in who's the greatest in a particular weight class, let alone the greatest, period. Mm-hmm. Think about what an argument that is when we've got, boxing dating back to the mid-1800s as far as being, recorded. Mm-hmm. And
Think about people like freaking Sugar Ray Robinson is freaking fought 137 times, and then it's crazy.
We can't even begin to solve that argument in mixed martial arts, which has been around about 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. That's
My microphone is squeaky.
Squeaky today.
You hear that, everybody? Like a fucking DJ. Yep, I'm nice and high. All right. Well, let's keep on smoking what we're smoking here. Let's get the Puffco, and we got the PAX 3 loaded up as well. We got this nice little bubbler here. Hope you're smoking on something delicious, hopefully legal wherever you are, folks. And let's go ahead and wrap up our weed of the week, and let's dive into the weekly wrap-up. All right, Paul, this week on the weekly wrap-up. I got to say, aside from the main event, it was kind of a disappointing UFC card last week. The fight night, we had Islam Makhachev.
I thought the main event was one of the worst fights of the night. I thought.
Yeah, it was boring as hell too. I actually meant to say co-main event, but it just came out. Man, I was thinking Miesha Tate in main event, and I was thinking co-main.
I thought Mary Renau and Miesha Tate should have been the main event. To be honest.
Yeah, I don't get why it wasn't. It was a way better fight than the Islam Makhachev fight, which was a bore.
Yeah, for sure.
But let's talk about Miesha Tate for a minute.
This is a different Miesha Tate.
She looked good. First person to TKO Durandamain.
Not Durandamain, Renau.
Oh, Renau, I mean, yeah.
Which, that's pretty big. I mean, after the fight, she ends up retiring. Good career by her.
Yeah, she's obviously. 43, 44.
Something like that.
She's been around a minute.
But you see a lot of these, women's MMA fighters. She was kind of part of that, kind of how Miesha is, that first generation coming in that, had a lot of fights later on in their lives because there was no opportunity to really fight women's cage fighting until, let's say, at least 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm. At least here in the States.
Yeah.
We had some stuff going on over in Japan with Roxanne Modafferi back in the day, but that was small.
Few and far between.
Absolutely.
But Miesha Tate, oh my God, she's a complete different fighter.
She looked like it. She wasn't really known for her TKO powers, prior. We'll call it her prior career with the UFC. I think she had one TKO stoppage, much more known as a submission artist. But she sounded pretty fired up afterwards too.
Yeah, and she looked like probably in the best shape I've ever seen her. As far as
physically,
on fight night.
Yeah, she's taking it quite seriously, and it wasn't like she had a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah,
when she retired,
she didn't have very many wars.
She's relatively young.
Well,
oh yeah, this is tasty.
Like you were saying before, though, then jumps on the microphone after and says she wants a title shot, that anyone at 135 can get it.
Holly Holm might be an interesting opponent there.
Holly Holm and her had a
talk
little
about
back
that
and forth
already.
Too. Yeah.
I don't know where that would put either one in regards of a title shot. I mean, Miesha sounds like she actually wants to make a title run.
Yeah,
which is interesting. I don't know how far that would go. I mean, Amanda's.
The first fight with her and Amanda was pretty one-sided. Amanda pretty much walked her down and put her out, like she's done with countless other people. But
yeah, let's get a little bit ahead of ourselves. I would be interested in the Holly Holm versus Miesha Tate rematch.
Yeah,
because they fought once before, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's who Miesha won the belt from.
Yeah, that's the way I remembered it as well. But I don't want to make sure my stony mind isn't forgetting something.
Yeah.
But I don't want to really see that be for a title shot or anything. I think that Miesha might be able to earn one, but Holly's got some. I mean, how many times are we going to see Holly Holm versus Amanda Nunes?
Yeah.
We need a little bit more time, I'd say, with that. But again, I'm jumping
honestly,
the gun way far.
If you look at it, too, though, when you look at how Miesha performed against Amanda and you see how Holly performed against Amanda, it's pretty similar. If you really look at it. More or less, Amanda walked in and walked out against, Holly and Miesha.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think if Miesha comes out and has another great performance against someone like a Holly, I could see them. Just because the field of contenders is so shallow to begin with, because Amanda's pretty much cleared the whole division out.
Yeah.
I could see it happening at 135. I mean, if you look at a couple weeks from now when Amanda's fighting Juliana Pena, and then after her, who really else is there? You know,
There's not a lot of
really
contenders. She's
Aldana's
been
there,
knocking
but
them all out.
she's had some issues too. So it's like there's just not very many. There's not very many. And then what? Does she have anybody at 45 really challenging her? Not really either.
There isn't a 45 division. So
Yeah, so. Like I was saying, I just think if Misha is able to come in and look like she did on Saturday night again,
if she beats Holly, then that's an interesting fight right there.
yeah,
But I think I figured it just occurred to me one of the reasons, aside from her obvious hard work and dedication, that I think that Misha's looking so much better.
I hate you. I know where you're going with this.
She dropped that dead weight Brian fucking Caraway.
Yeah.
That's what happened. Mr. Tate is gone.
Well, and then also,
And that dude's a fucking joke.
yeah.
She got through the whole ATV
Didn't she have a kid
stealing.
too?
Yeah, she had a baby with another guy.
Yeah, he was
now-
on the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah. Ta-da, she's back. ATV problem solved. Caraway kicked to the curb. Baby doing good. It's a brand new person right there.
She's still with the same people though. She still got Eric Nixon in her corner and stuff like that.
Is Caraway still in the UFC? He got cut. didn't he?
Fuck no, he's not in the UFC.
God, I can't stand that dude.
He's in Battleground or whatever that shit was, where like no one got paid. He was in that the last I heard from him, and then he got
That's probably
arrested.
why he tried to run that scam on the ATV.
Could happen. But
Well,
in the end, I do think Misha Tate is a formidable contender at this point. Let's see what she can do after this, though. I mean,
I hear
not
you.
saying Marion isn't. She just wasn't. She's not a contender, really.
no, but that was a good fight
But
for
it was a
Misha's
good
comeback.
fight,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll see what happens now when she gets a legitimate, top 10 fighter here. We'll see
Mm-hmm.
what happens. You know who else was on the card making me sad? It's my boy Jeremy Stevens fighting at 145. Who was he fighting against?
Matthias Gamarot, but he's good.
He was like 10-0, I do believe.
Yeah,
right?
I think he showed in that fight that he's able to he's ready for this.
Yeah, he
position.
came in
he's-
and Kimura'd Steven in a minute and 30 seconds.
Yeah,
roughly.
he's ready.
It was absurd.
He's ready to take a next step, is what I'm saying.
And now that puts Jeremy at basically winless in his last 6 because he had that no contest. And he's actually got a negative UFC record now. He's 15-18 overall in the UFC, which is he's got a huge number of fights. But
Yeah,
this is a guy that's been
a mainstay.
a mainstay for years, thanks to his power and his fan-friendly style. When he hasn't knocked anybody out in forever, he hasn't won a fight in forever. As much as I love the guy, is he in danger of getting cut here? I mean, I don't know how many fights he's got on his contract.
See, I think he's one of those guys that goes
He's getting all that Venom cash.
Yeah,
I mean, who's the highest paid fighter for Venom on the card?
yeah. But you know what I'm saying though. I think he's one of those guys that falls under the category of the UFC will ask him to retire before they cut him.
They don't want Jeremy Stevens over in Bellator, you don't think? Is his name that heavy these days?
I just think he's part of. I feel like there's a bunch of guys like kind of the way, like a Joe Lozon or like a freaking, a lot of those old school Ultimate Fighter guys that they chose more to ask them to retire instead of releasing them, and we've seen those guys get a lot more leeway. I feel like as far as losses and wins than a lot of other guys as well. Those
True enough.
Jeremy Stevens is, it's a big part of UFC history.
They used to get more leeway. I don't know in this new age.
Yeah, that's true. That is also true.
I mean, you had Diego Sanchez saying he couldn't get a hold of Dana White, but that could have been bullshit.
Yeah.
Dana coming right out and just saying, well, he has my number, which doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
He didn't say he didn't have your number. He said you wouldn't respond.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It bums me out to see Jeremy keep losing, though. I like watching that guy fight. But overall, I say that about wraps it as far as that particular card. Wasn't a whole lot of action on
We
it.
got to
What
talk
do
about the main event.
Do we? I was trying to skip it and hope you would just forget. That was my move. You didn't fall for it, though.
Islam Makhachev defeats Thiago Moises.
155 pound.
Yeah.
So
By
fourth round submission.
Fourth round. It's cool. Wasn't very exciting, but wasn't bad. Just did what he does.
Look, he's a good fighter.
He's a good fighter, but I do think I agree with a lot with what Dan Hooker said yesterday, and he's copying Khabib's homework. Like he does everything Khabib did. Just goes out there, wrestles.
Well, he's getting
Gets
personal training from Khabib. Khabib is footing all the
His
bills
counter.
for his
His
training
corner.
camp, his flying over. Like
Yeah,
as
he's
far as I
smart.
understand it, Khabib's paying for everything,
Yeah.
and that's his boy, and good for him. But it's time to fight some contenders now. I don't
Yeah.
know why he's fighting Moises to begin with, but
Well, I mean, Moises is what 12th in the division or something like that. But
it
like,
wasn't. I don't think he was ranked, but I could be wrong. But I mean, he's talking shit about Chandler because he lost a fight.
Yeah.
But then he calls out Tony Ferguson, who hasn't won a fight, and
RDA.
God knows when. And no offense to Tony, but it looks like he's over the hill at this point. I mean, until he shows us otherwise, we just got to look at your last string of fights, and he ain't looking that good.
Yeah.
So I didn't like his particular call-outs there.
I'd like to see him and like Benil or him and
That would be an interesting fight. Him and
RDA.
Dariush or RDA was another one he mentioned that might be good.
Chandler would be cool too.
I'm down with the Chandler fight.
Down with Gaethje too, but that will never happen with their management.
Hooker, perhaps.
Hooker maybe, but I do think Hooker needs to win another one before you can get that fight. I think Hooker and Ferguson makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Yeah, that'd be good if Tony keeps fighting. I don't know if he is or not, but Islam Makhachev, I'm not a fan, so I guess.
Fight Connor.
But he is looking good. I don't know. We'll see how he does against the top tier guys. You know.
Yeah, I do think he needs a win against someone like a Chandler or Gaethje or, any of those top 10, 5 to 7. Like,
I'm most interested in him versus Michael Chandler. Let's see that happen.
yeah, me too. Him and Michael Chandler or him and Benil Dariush makes the most sense to me, I think.
I like those
Yeah,
because I'd like to see Chandler beat him.
me too.
So, just to be
being
clear,
honest, just
everybody.
being honest.
Yeah,
just
I'd
being
like
honest.
this hype train to be ended and put back and off the burner and gone. I don't want to see another champ like Khabib, and I mean I just don't like the style. I don't want another boring ass. I'm not down with it.
Like, I'm a
Tariq
wrestler, and I
Reese.
really don't like watching it either. Like, there's a way to wrestle and still be entertaining, and there's not. Like, Khabib is more entertaining than Makhachev, let's just be honest. Like, at least Khabib would, like, entertain the idea of, like, I'll stand on the feet with you for a second and see if I can rock you, but if not,
Yes.
we're going to the ground. Like, Islam is, like, literally just like, we're going down, come on. And then he, like this one, just like the Drew Dober fight, is like he didn't really hurt him bad on top. He just kind of held control, looked for his openings, and took them when they were available. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it is what it is.
Is what it is. Not my style. I'm not a fan of the team itself. So we'll see what he gets next. But he did win, so there we go. But that does wrap up that UFC Fight Night card here. And that's going to bring us to our news outside of the cage. All right, Paul, we've had an ongoing conversation here in our news outside the cage segment dealing with Ariel Helwani's departure from ESPN, the role that Dana White may or may not have played in that, and all of its effects afterwards. And we're getting more and more information on that
Yeah.
as
Via Ariel Helwani.
as time is unfolding here. Helwani is letting out some information. Now, he appeared on a very popular podcast, right?
Yeah, he went on the Dan Le Batard show, which has now become like a safe haven for all ESPN's wronged reporters at this point. Like,
Which is growing.
It's growing, yeah, because they've become a fuck you, we're bigger than media type company. You know what I mean? And so now you got Dan Le Batard's two guys, like a bunch of the people that were on ESPN is like everyone knows on ESPN between like noon and like prime time, there's like segmented shows, like and Dan Le Batard used to be one of them. But since some weird contract negotiations with him and quite a few other people that were on the show, where the ESPN was just like willing to attempt to cut their pay by, some said, up to 60% of less than what they were getting paid before. So this seemed like this could have been the same narrative as to why Ariel left ESPN, which I do think it did play into effect as well. But
yeah, if you're new to the show or new to this
Like-
segment, the ongoing conversation between
Yeah.
Paul and me is I felt that this was done by Dana White,
yeah,
and I was arguing from that point, and you felt that it was done more of a mutual thing between him and ESPN.
yeah,
And then we've just had our little, opinions about that. But now, what did Ariel had to say? All kinds of things.
all
that
kinds of shit.
I would encourage everybody listening to go onto YouTube or wherever, and you can research this interview with him. It's about 25 minutes or so, and you'll know that you're not the right one because Ariel's wearing
A wrestling mask.
a lucha
Luchador mask.
whatever mask. Yeah, looking ridiculous for like the first 15, 20 minutes or so. But it's about a 30-minute talk,
Yeah.
and wow.
Things he said were like, just put a real black eye on the time he had with ESPN, I would feel.
I'm almost speechless as to where to even begin at some of the crazier things. So let's just talk about one of them that really stood out to me, because we're not going to go over the whole interview here.
Yeah.
But Ariel said that he had a pre-show that he would do at UFC events, and he had a post-show with Chael.
And a weigh-in show.
And a weigh-in show.
Yeah.
And when he was there at the event, doing his thing, and Dana White would show up to the event to do his thing, per order of Dana White, and you correct me if I've got any of this wrong, because this is just so crazy, security from ESPN would come to Ariel and tell him, Dana's here, you have to leave, and then Ariel Helwani would have to be escorted off of the premises by ESPN security and put out of sight of Dana White until Dana passed through and did his thing and then left.
Cleared the area.
Because Dana refused to even look at Ariel Helwani. And Ariel thought that that was ridiculous. I said, listen, I won't talk to him. I'll just look down at my phone when he goes by. And they were like, this is a non-negotiable thing. Please come with us. Security.
Yeah.
So he has to sit outside like a fucking 3-year-old while mad stepdaddy fucking goes through. Redheaded stepchild goes away from daddy's sight. I mean, this is like, that's what I mean. And then apparently when Dana leaves, he can come back in and continue doing his work for ESPN.
Yeah. Shady shit.
We didn't make any of that up. That's legit.
That's all, yeah. That's all.
One of many things Ariel said, but that's shocking behavior from a successful, basically CEO, president, whatever you want to call him. I mean, he's a fight promoter, but he's also the guy in charge of the UFC.
Yeah.
This is appalling behavior. That is as childish as fuck.
Just childish as fuck, yeah. For real. Super childish.
And absolutely humiliating for Ariel Helwani, who's a grown man with children, a wife, a successful career, who's done exactly what to Dana White?
Nothing really.
When he
Other
broke
than
that fucking Brock Lesnar story at
yeah.
UFC 200? That's
Broke
what
a couple
started this?
stories, and like that's like really what Dana's like. And that's what Dan said too during the interview. He's like, so let me get this straight. So Dana's problem with you, he has, is you being a journalist, like, because really that's what it is. Because
Right.
that's
What else doesn't-
that's equivalent to, let's say, you know, like the Patriots signing a free agent, and you get the information first, and you report it out to the news that, well, Tom Brady's re-signing with the Patriots or something like that.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as
Unconfirmed
saying,
by the Patriots.
yeah, it's the same thing as Ariel going, oh, Brock Lesnar is returning to the UFC. Like, what the fuck? Like, what? That really scorned your relationship? Like, Dana's really that upset, and the Fertittas and everyone who was involved in that bullshit was so upset by, you know, Ariel breaking news that Brock Lesnar was returning to the UFC, that you couldn't do it first with your super fucking cool promo with Brock sitting in a, you know,
It's
all
not like people wouldn't
oiled
still
up,
watch the promo.
jogging in the back. Like, who the fuck cares? It's a fucking. He just announced somebody was returning to the UFC, and you've like pretty much attempted to blackball him from the sport ever since.
Yeah, for those unaware, after that, Dana White banned Ariel Helwani, who at that time was an independent journalist, and got him fired from Fox.
Yeah.
and revoked his media credentials and banned him from future UFC events, which turned into a big deal, which eventually was reversed.
Yeah. He never got his job back with Fox, though.
Never got his job back from Fox and wound up at ESPN before the UFC went there.
6 months, yeah.
Yeah,
Before
mind you, he was there before the deal was done, and then gets treated that way.
Well, that's the thing is he says that in the first 6 months he was at ESPN, everything was great. He had no idea that they were in talks with the UFC. He just thought that he was going to, be the forefront of a new, the UFC is so young still. You got to think ESPN has even heightened the platform for the UFC in the last few years. That when Ariel went there, he was viewing it as being like, all right, we're going to be the cornerstone of MMA media, and we're going to be the ones that are going to, be ahead of things. He didn't know that the UFC was signing a deal to be, the sole distributor of the UFC.
And put up their own commentary and their own shows and their own. I mean, no offense to all these fighters. I'm glad you can get some extra work out of this, whatever they're paying you. But there's nothing wrong with keeping actual journalists still in the mix. I mean, and then suddenly Ariel's shows were regulated to odd times and weird hours and cut stuff.
Like I was telling you, dude, wasn't I swear, you can go back through our show catalog, go back, I think, at least 20 episodes. Bro, his fucking, like, Ariel Helwani MMA show would play at, like, 2 a.m. randomly on ESPN.
Yeah.
He said he even still was able to pull better numbers than a lot of, like, shows that were fucking there. 2 a.m., dude. Like, come on.
And I couldn't help but notice the incredible push for the new DC and whoever that replaced, like
DC and RC,
the shows that they're replacing Ariel's with are suddenly getting the push from the UFC's broadcast team, which never once talked about Ariel's shit. Like, it was pretty fucking blatant.
Yeah.
I mean,
and I mean, he talked his shit too. I mean, like some of it was like he talked his shit. So I mean,
who, Ariel?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like at the end when he was like, "No offense, I love DC and I love Chael, but their shows are not even gonna fuck with my numbers when I go to MMA fighting." I was like, damn.
And he's right.
He's probably right. Like, let's just be honest. There's so much content that goes through ESPN. Like,
ESPN,
it's hard to pull numbers,
especially when they already were
sounds weird.
putting those shows at the bottom of the barrel anyways. But even if they start promoting them now, they didn't have time to build a base when the number one guy in the business was there. Now you're going to build it with
Two former fighters.
with a couple former fighters that were shining because Ariel shined. I mean, let's be honest.
And how much do...
He's terrible.
Well, it's not even that. It's how much do both their partners know about the game of mixed martial arts? Because I think the one thing we've seen that has kind of been the worst part of the merger with ESPN is Stephen A's takes on mixed martial arts, where he can watch it all he wants, but he just doesn't have that core respect for what they're actually doing.
Bro, you could see it in the Conor McGregor Dustin Poirier pay-per-view, which had his sorry ass on there, and he's basically on that show once again calling fucking Donald Cerrone a coward. Yeah. I'm like, are you still hanging on to this Donald Cerrone was shook fucking shit? Yeah. Like, after all this time.
And here's the thing, even if he was, like, it's just something you don't say about, like...
Dude, why do you keep harping on it?
Yeah, and let's just be honest. I mean, you just can't say that about, like, about... It's different when you're going out there and you're fucking shooting three-pointers and you're going out there and trying to put another man out of consciousness. Like, that's just different. You can say, oh, he was 1 of 12 from the floor this weekend. He was shook. Like, but you can't say, oh, he got his face beat in and his fucking orbital broken. Must have been shook. Like, no. Like, let's just be honest. Like, you just can't. You can't approach the same two topics with that same mentality that he approaches talking about other sports, because there's a lot more on the line sometimes when you're talking about these guys, and they're not paid shit to begin with.
Right, and they're essentially no holds barred fighting. There are holds barred, but they're essentially, which is completely different than playing a fucking game. Even something, if you want to go as contact heavy as football and hockey, it's not the same thing. You're fucking fist fighting somebody.
Yeah.
I bet Stephen A's gone and played some pickup basketball somewhere.
So
Maybe he's even strapped on some hockey skates and fucking fucked around. But you ain't never fucking fought nobody, bro. Probably, maybe you did in high school or some shit. But you're not. You're not getting in the cage and fucking fist fighting anybody.
You're not out here looking to fight people for
No,
money.
you're not in the streets. You're not a prize fighter.
Yeah.
It's a different thing.
Exactly.
So that disgusts me, and I don't know if they want to promote crap like that. Cool. I don't really watch the ESPN shows anyway, to be honest. So.
Yeah. Well, I just feel like this speaks to a lot of blowback that ESPN maybe had been getting from Dana and people in the UFC that they no longer wanted him there and all this shit, which he did say, but he said that it was never. They said that to ESPN on multiple occasions that they wanted Ariel gone, and he said, I respect ESPN because they stuck to their guns and they never got rid of me when they told them to get rid of me. But he said, I know in my heart that when we stepped into that negotiating room, that was a big part of the reason I got offered the number I got offered.
Dana?
Yeah.
Well, if Dana was having rules like that, you can guarantee he knew Ariel's contract was coming up. If he was that petty, imagine what he was doing with shit that mattered, like contract renewal. He must have been hammering the fuck out of whoever was in charge of.
Well, that's the thing, though. They
Ariel.
still did offer him a deal.
They did, yeah. And noticed he worded things very carefully. There are certain things he's simply not allowed to say.
Yeah.
And he'd said it like that.
He was like, yeah, they did offer me. I turned it down.
Yeah.
Because if he goes out publicly and says, they didn't offer me
offered
shit.
him like $60,000 a year or some bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well,
who knows?
Yeah, who knows what they offered him exactly.
You know.
But
and then they could have made a stipulation like you can't say the number. You can say we offered you something and you turned it down.
yeah. Well, and there's been some
Don't
crazy.
say that Dana got you fired. You can say that. I think clearly we can all see
We all,
what's going on here.
yeah.
Which
I feel like it's a mixture of both our fucking original opinions.
I think so too.
But here we go again, though. So now Dana's Mr. Mini Dictator of the UFC, and we do what he says, and he does what he wants, you know? And that's just kind of what things, or where things have gone since, I think, the sale to WME, which is where originally we had, you know, Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta at every negotiating table.
They would rein him in.
And they would not even rein him in, but they would take time to listen to what the fighter's point of view was and where they thought their numbers or however they thought their worth was exponentially more than what they were offering. They would listen to those conversations where I feel like Dana's like, this business runs with or without you. I've been running this shit for 20 years. Mm-hmm. If you want to be in this, you can be in this. But if you don't, there's the door. I'm offering you this number. If you don't want this number, we'll see what happens.
That's a childish way to do it. And
It
when
is.
he used to have that kind of petulant attitude before, what would happen? Like take
Conor McGregor, for example.
Right. Or I was going to say, if the John Jones, Francis Ngannou situation was happening under the Fertitta brothers' ownership, what would happen is either John, most likely John or Francis, would request a private meeting with Lorenzo Fertitta, and they would work something out, and then they would all get together with Dana, and suddenly we'd have a deal, because that happened repeatedly.
Yeah. Well, when you're talking about guys like the Fertittas, too, there was probably a whole lot of under-the-table money that was given to a lot of these guys to be like, Dana's a dumbass, don't worry, you know. But
and they're guys that could see the bottom line of the money that an Ngannou-Jones fight would make, despite paying these guys the money that they're asking for. Or something close to it. But now that is gone, where they ain't going to go talk to fucking Ari Emanuel.
Yeah, no.
And Dana's just like, fuck you, leave. Oh, you can't leave. Ha, fuck you, sit.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly where we're at.
Which is embarrassing.
It is. It is. And it really is. It's upsetting because it just shows that where the UFC before was one of the leagues where the best fight the best and we make the best fights in the world. Now you're just making the fights that you feel are the best, but they're not necessarily the best for. You know what I mean? Because that was just such a big talking point of the UFC earlier, where they would like, you know, talk down on boxing and go, well, you know, boxing's great, but you never really get to see the Crawford versus Spence or, you know, Pacquiao versus Mayweather when it matters. At the UFC, we get fights done. Remember, that was such a big thing.
That used to be his
even
thing,
going into the Maymac thing, like that was a big part of like what Dana said too. Is I knew it needed to be done, so I went and did it. And he takes credit when things happen the right way. But now when we're in this weird gridlock situation where everybody who needs to get paid can't get paid, and Dana is more or less holding the UFC hostage from a lot of these, high-profile fighters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're just in no man's land. Like, what is it? How does this help you? Is what I don't get. Like, what is this mentality got in Dana? You know what I mean?
I mean, we don't know what's going on the inside, but from the outside, it just looks like stubbornness, pettiness, fucking manipulative bullshit, and just I'm in charge. Period. The end.
Yeah.
Don't like it. Fuck off. And I don't understand how somebody in that position has that type of attitude. It's shocking to me. This isn't 1993. The UFC isn't around just now, beginning. Like you're fucking in. You're now harming the league by refusing to make the fights you always promised that you'd make. Over money.
Over money, yeah.
When the UFC is paid. Like, he says bullshit like we can't afford to boost the bonuses every week because that would bankrupt us, or whatever nonsense he said.
Yeah.
And then that comes on the heels of, 90 days ago, he was talking about how the UFC was just coming out of their best year ever.
Yeah. So which one's the lie?
Right.
And
then this past week, guess what? He handed out 2 extra bonuses. Oh, my God, the company's going to be bankrupt, dude.
Yeah, right.
There was 6.
Oh, no.
Where the fuck did that come from? It was an Apex show with no crowd, too. Oh, shit. I mean, I don't know. It's embarrassing. Now, speaking of Dana White, let's shift into our last bit of news and news inside the cages. He did a weird thing at this Conor McGregor-Dustin Poirier pay-per-view where Logan Paul goes and buys tickets. He buys fucking tickets. And Dana apparently calls Logan Paul out of the blue and then upgrades his tickets to the quote-unquote billionaires row.
Yeah. Which is like the row they flash the camera on when they're going through, like, oh, look who's here tonight. You know what I mean? It's like, God.
And this is odd because, in case people are unaware, his brother Jake has been publicly feuding with Dana over fighter pay. And really clowning him. I mean, they even contributed to, we discussed in our last episode about, the GoFundMe account that Jake and Triller dropped $30,000 in for a UFC fighter. So I thought this was a very odd move. A, they don't need the ticket upgrade.
Yeah. They probably already were from, bro.
Yeah, they're going to get that camera time anyways, and I don't know what shine the UFC gets by having Logan Paul.
Well, that's what's weird is, like, Logan Paul doesn't really have any negative relationship with Dana. He's always been, like, more of the one to be like, I like Dana, so I'm never going to say anything bad about him because if I ever could do some kind of business with the UFC, I would. And it's weird because now just getting buddy-buddy with Logan Paul could mean that he's going to try something.
Please don't. How about instead of kissing the ass of other rich, famous people, why don't you fucking do something for your fighters?
Yeah, true.
Pay them some money. I don't know.
Upgrade
Make the
their
big
pay.
fights you used to promise us.
Yeah, true. It's true.
I mean, that fucking... No offense to Derek Lewis and the French guy Cyril Gane.
Yeah.
That ain't nobody buying that shit. That ain't a real championship, and nobody gives a fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, you might sell some more tickets in Houston. If the
Yeah.
pay-per-view ain't going to sell, I don't fucking care. I'm not buying it. I ain't paying $70 for that shit. Are you fucking kidding me?
Nah.
No.
Not saying that those two fighters are bad.
Oh, I like Derek Lewis, but...
I just feel that the pay-per-view itself for an interim title is just, it's unjust, unjust, I'm sorry.
It
doesn't make any sense.
Circling back to this whole thing with him and Ariel, though, and how it all ties in, is when there's no one there to rein in the petty things he does, like what he's done with Ariel Helwani. I think that Dana feels it gives him license to go out and do the major fuck-ups like he's doing with Francis Ngannou and John Jones. He's like, I can flex my nuts down here. No one says shit. I mean, maybe he doesn't have this conversation with himself, but there's no one there to tell him, hey, dude, you can't be, like, stop.
Yeah.
And so he just goes on and keeps doing fucked up shit until we wind up now we just don't get fights because Dana wants to flex his nuts.
Yeah. That's really where we're at.
I mean, it's literally what he does. I mean, look what he did to Francis Ngannou's agent.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally just tries to be like, I have a bigger dick than you.
Yeah.
See?
Look at all my money. You know?
I mean, I don't. It's shocking behavior, and I guess that's how we'll end this segment here, the news outside the cage, is this is shocking behavior for the head of a major sporting organization.
Yeah. More or less a commissioner of a sporting organization.
Right. I mean, imagine if any of the other commissioners were having bigger dick contests with fucking managers in public, like on Twitter.
Imagine if Roger Goodell was just like, you know what, Tom, your contract disputes don't mean shit. We're gonna start your backup in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, fuck your contract. Go sit.
We're gonna do an interim Super Bowl game.
And your manager's a little dicked idiot.
Yeah,
I'm gonna bitch slap next time I see him.
Yeah,
punk.
Like what?
You'd be
the
like,
fuck?
They'd be calling for his ouster. Like
Yeah.
people would be marching in the streets for him to be fucking
But
gone.
what if we? Oh, what does this always go back to? You know what holds someone like that accountable? A fucking fighters union. But guess what? We don't have.
We ain't never
We
gonna.
don't got that. Guess what the NFL has? They have a players union.
Right.
Guess what the NBA have? They have a players union. All these major sports have a players union because when people get stupid and try to suspend people and do stupid shit like that in other leagues, the players union's there to
rein
mediate.
things in. Yep.
So
Well,
that's the issue. It's always going to be the issue. That's really what it boils down to. Is it's always going to be the issue until the fighters unionize.
and I've given up hope on that unionization. When you see guys like George St. Pierre, who at one point was all on board with the union, remember?
Yeah.
Him and fucking Cerrone were like, yeah,
Him,
with the
Cerrone,
MMA FAA one.
Fucking Frankie Edgar.
And
Lauren
then
Murphy.
there was a lot of behind the doors
Bjorn.
meetings with fucking brass at the UFC, and suddenly none of them were on it except Lauren Murphy, who promptly got cut from the fucking UFC. Yep. And even in retirement now, GSP don't say shit about unionizing fighters.
No.
Nothing. None of them are going to ever do anything, dude. Except Lauren Murphy. I know she's out there working it. A couple others, Leslie Smith is working it. I might be getting those two confused.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think
sure.
it is Leslie Smith.
Maybe,
I'm sorry.
Leslie Smith. No offense to either, but Leslie Smith was fucking always on board with that shit.
Yeah.
Publicly, lost her job at the UFC over like social media while on a UFC promo tour publicly.
Yeah.
All because of that. I mean, it wasn't Dana didn't come out and say that, but anybody that knows anything knows that's why.
Yeah.
And she's
Everyone
still out there advocating, but none of these other people are. So that ends our news outside the cage, Paul. Brings us into the boxing breakdown. All right, we need a load of fresh bowl.
Yeah, for sure.
We need a load of fresh bowl while we talk about. We had some exciting action in traditional boxing last weekend, and then we've got some exciting action in bare knuckle boxing coming up. Where would you like to start, sir? While I
let's
load up a fresh bowl of this.
Let's start with what has
Great
already
White
happened. Let's talk about Jamal Charlo versus Brian Castano.
You know, this was for the unified 154-pound belt, the first of the four-belt era. So this fight was a big deal.
Yeah.
It wound up being a split draw. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a lot of the same kind of things we saw in Charlo's first professional loss, where it was a guy who he maybe hurt more, but didn't hit more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you look at the punch stats, Castano outlanded him, and if you watch the fight, he was hurt several times through several rounds by Charlo. Definitely did more damage.
But I feel like the pace and the work he put in during the fight could have won him quite a few of those rounds.
Charlo?
No, I thought.
Oh, Castano, yeah, he did a lot of his traditional march forward and throw a lot of punches, which he did well.
I do like. I did think Charlo won, but in the same breath, I thought he won the Harrison fight too. So like, it's one of those things where, it was really kind of the same fight in my opinion. It was just Charlo landing the better shots, but getting outlanded. And if you're not a very educated judge, which we know there isn't very many of them out of there, so if you're just watching, I just don't think they saw the effects that we all saw on the broadcast of how he was getting hit with those punches. I think they just saw him working harder and throwing more and thought, man, he's winning the fight.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with the overall result being a draw.
Yeah.
I did have a problem with the one judge who scored it for Charlo at 117, 111,
No, the other way around. Against Charlo.
which was a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, I had it 114, 113, if I remember correctly. I haven't thought about it in a few days now, but I had it very close. I was like, okay. But when I heard that score, I was like, my goodness,
Yeah.
that's out there. However, I think that what should happen next is, I mean, this. Well, let's not make it sound like the fight was bad. I thought it was a great fight.
Yeah, it was a good fight.
I think this is what happens when you put a high-level fight together. I mean,
I feel like it was.
it's not an all-time classic, but it was a fun fight, right?
Yeah.
It had lots of excitement, lots of back and forth.
I feel like he just tried to outlast Charlo. I just don't think Charlo was ever really going away. You know what I mean?
No, and I think Charlo was a little bit too dependent, like he always is, on his power. He should have worked harder earlier, and we wouldn't have had the draw. He has knocked a lot of people out late in fights, and so he tends to rely on that.
Kind of like how Loma does too. Like, he kind of gives people some rounds sometimes, just to make them work harder than they need to.
Right. So,
But it comes back and bites you in the ass sometimes.
I think what they need to do is just run this back immediately.
Yeah, run it back.
It was a great fight. I'd like to see it again. I think they can work their way around the mandatories for each guy. It's not really that big a deal. I looked at it. I mean, there are a few up, but I don't think it's anything that they can not work around.
Yeah, and I do think running it back makes a lot of sense too, because I do think whoever wins that fight makes them kind of the biggest draw in the weight class. You know what I mean? Like,
And I love unified titles. I mean, I think that's
you know what I'm
great.
saying though? Yeah, it makes it more. Whenever they fight after that, makes their next fight the biggest possible money for everybody involved, because a unified champion versus, Charlo having he has 3 belts or whatever.
Yeah, he's got 3.
Going against some other
Stano's got the one,
mandatory,
yeah.
or
I think Stano's got the IBF.
yeah, I think he has IBF. But unified champion sounds a whole lot better than listing off all the bullshit.
Absolutely, and I think the second fight would sell pretty well, or at least get viewership very well. It wasn't a pay-per-view, but it was such a solid fight. I think you can sell the rematch pretty easy, especially with like you just said, with the unified back behind it. So that was a good fight. I want to see him run it back right away. Sounds like you do as well. Mm-hmm. And we both agreed we thought Charlo won a close one.
Yeah.
So, what about this BKFC that's upcoming? This is their 19th card. Mm-hmm. It's going to be headlined by 2 former UFC fighters in the women's flyweight division, being, of course, Paige VanZant and Rachael Ostovich. Decent card underneath it.
Fight.
I think before we talk about that, let's talk about Arnold Allen versus Michael Terrell fight. That's a heavyweight bout, which I think is pretty significant in the division. Both guys, this is Terrell's 4-0. He's coming over from Great Britain, though, so he doesn't have a lot of experience in the U.S. version of bare knuckle, whereas Arnold Adams is 4-1.
Yeah.
All right, his one loss was like 3 fights ago, I think, but he has wins.
Chase Sherman. Right?
Yeah, to Chase Sherman, he lost a decision, split decision to Chase Sherman.
Yeah.
But he has TKO wins over Sam Shoemaker, O'Bannon, as well as current champion
Joey Beltran.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that this is a de facto #1 contender fight. There's a lot of talk about Frank Mir coming in and possibly taking that #1 contender spot right away.
Yeah, taking that mantle.
But we haven't heard that being signed yet or a date on that. Mm-hmm. And as far as these guys go, in BKFC, when you're 4-0 and 4-1 in the BKFC, that's definitely veteran status here.
Well, yeah, there's only 19 events ever.
Right. I mean, and we've talked about it before in the show. We tend to see a turning point in these fighters when they hit that level. Mm-hmm. Like we saw it really well in Just Let Me Bang Bro, Julian Lane, in his fight at BKFC 18, which was his 6th fight in bare knuckle in the promotion, and he looked amazing. Like you could tell he turned a corner, and he's found a way to win in a style that's working in this currently evolving sport that is bare knuckle.
Yeah.
But this will be an interesting fight because we just saw in BKFC 18, we saw Louis Palomino versus Tyler Goodjohn. for in that championship bout where Goodjohn was the same thing. He had one fight against Charles Bennett in BKFC, but he's coming over from Europe as well, where the difference being, Paul, they don't have the tie. They don't have the clinch. That's what I'm looking for. And you can't do like the tie head plume where you got him in the lock. And that was the reason Goodjohn lost that fight, in my opinion, was he didn't know how to handle that.
Yeah.
Like Palomino would tie him up and then uppercut the shit out of him, and Goodjohn would get his arms around his neck and not really know what to do with it and just eat a lot of punches. So we might see that play out here, is my long-winded point, in this Arnold Adams versus Michael Terrell fight.
Yeah, I kind of want to see Adams win just because I want to see him run it back with Beltran.
Yeah, I think that would be a good fight.
Yeah.
I want to see that as well. We don't really know a whole lot about rematches yet in BKFC and how that figures into the strategy of two well-established fighters who aren't just learning.
Yeah, the only one you could really point to is like Artem and Jason Knight, number 2, and that one was a freaking bloodbath too.
Oh my God, that was.
But it was a little bit more. I thought a little bit more calculated than the first one.
I was hoping we get a third there, but they've both gone off to do other things for now.
Yeah, for now. Yeah.
So, I think that'll be a standout fight on what is a great card that, frankly, we're not going to talk about a lot of these fighters, Paul, because a lot of them are unknown and don't have a lot of history because this history is being built, as we watch here. Yeah. But I would encourage everyone to check out this card. It's like $3.99 a month for BKFC, and you get the pay-per-views.
Yeah, and then you get of course, the extremely high-level fight between rapper Blueface and and was he a YouTuber?
There's a TikTok star.
New Main.
I'm not sure.
Kane
Trujillo. Yeah.
But
now look, let's talk about that for a second, because when you first heard that BKFC was doing this YouTube versus TikToker fight, you were like, "What the fuck,
like,
dude?
What is this whack ass shit?"
And my initial thoughts were the same until I saw first it's not the headliner.
If it was the headliner, yeah, it would be different.
And then I'd be like, okay, that don't make that the head. Like, it's just a fight on the card. And the reason to me that this is far less bullshit than, like, say, if they were doing this in the boxing ring with some big old 18-ounce gloves and some headgear, is because it's a bare-knuckle fist fight.
Well, let's be honest. What the fuck is the main event in comparison to this one, too, though? The main event, like, yeah, they're both fucking MMA fighters, but they're both fucking Rachael Ostovich is just 4-6. And fucking Paige VanZant's like 12-6.
Yeah, they could probably both beat up fucking Blueface, though.
Nah, I doubt it. That dude's looking sharp. Just kidding. You see those overhands he throws?
Oh, we were watching tape. That overhand right? Oh, yeah.
He's like, hold on. I don't want to give away all his training methods, but can we see that overhand right again? That's what he said.
I'm sorry, trainer of Blueface. That was not a good overhand right. You actually have to pull that thing back. It needs to be on a straight line, not.
But we'll see.
It was like a reverse uppercut.
Dude, what if he just starts bare knuckle fighting? That'd be crazy.
That would be
Dude's
crazy.
got 7 baby mamas. He needs to make some money.
7 baby mamas.
7. They all live together.
Who all live together.
Yeah.
I don't know who this guy is. I'm not up on my Blueface.
Dude.
I just learned about him when David Feldman was talking about it. He has 7
Crazy.
baby mamas who live together.
And all his kids are like a year old.
They live together with him?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, I assume he's got a fat crib.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
He's from Vegas. He went to fucking Desert Oasis High School.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah.
7. Like, how old are these kids?
1. All of them. like all of them
So
are
he's
like
got 7 toddlers?
7. Like 7. No, he's got like 7 like
Or
infants.
7 like infants?
Like 7 infants running around, dude. Like, this fool's got hella baby mamas. So he's got to make some cash.
He's got to get his name out there then and get this fight with his TikTok.
I mean, he really doesn't, though. He makes a lot of money off like YouTube and all kinds of bullshit. But yeah.
I figured if he's famous
Rapping.
and doing that shit.
All that shit.
Does he?
He's
Is that what you call it?
Yeah.
Rap?
Yeah, sure.
That's not rap for me.
Rap.
But we won't dive
If
into
you
That's
add
not
a
this
C
show.
in front of the rap.
Yeah, that's some 6ix9ine style bullshit.
Yeah.
Okay, so my problem, honestly though, all shit talking aside, I respect 2 people that are gonna
I respect
bare
him for
knuckle
stepping
fist
up in that
fight
bitch,
each
yeah.
other.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's gonna be cool.
That's about as close as you can get to actually having a
fight.
street fight. And it's gonna make sure nobody's gonna stomp on your fucking face or something. You just keep it to the fists. Go for it.
Why
As long
not?
as I'm not shelling out money to see that as some goddamn headlining event. You can fuck
I
off
guess.
with that. some nonsense on the undercard. Do I care
On a
about it?
$4 pay-per-view.
No.
Yeah, no.
Am I hopeful that it brings a few eyes to BKFC that turn into fans?
Sure.
I am. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Sounds good. Well, then let's talk about the main event. The main event got Paige VanZant taking on Rachael Ostovich.
No, I'm not laughing at the fight.
I'm not either. I'm laughing at what we just said. No, I'm just kidding. But
Well, Paige VanZant lost her first fight, right?
Yeah.
And the woman who beat her, Britain Hart,
Is
she
on the
wins the
undercard.
fight, and then this other female fighter jumps into fucking their little squared circle, starts talking mad shit, right? And they get this promo out of it, and so then they make that fight, and then it's
On
like
the
4
undercard.
fights down the undercard on the fight headlined by Paige,
yeah,
which I get.
yeah,
It makes sense,
yeah,
but it's funny.
yeah.
At some level, Britain Hart is like,
No,
what the fuck?
yeah.
She is. She ain't
She's
going to
supposed
say it
get-
publicly.
She's supposed to get her little Rocky moment. Remember,
Right.
she's like, "You can do whatever you want if you believe," and all that shit. And it's like,
She can't headline at
it's
the
like,
same
I
event.
can't believe you're fucking fighting 4 fights under the chick you beat fucking a week and a half ago. But all right, cool.
Yeah. I think Paige VanZant is going to
Yeah, I think she wins this fight.
is going to win this fight, mainly due to the
I hope
the
by
learning
nothing
curve
too crazy.
that is required in BKFC. I think Ostovich will probably do quite well,
Yeah.
but it takes a minute, as you could see in Paige's fight, as you can see in this sport if you watch people that stick around in it for a while. We were just talking about it earlier. These fighters,
Yeah, but when they
getting
fought in
better.
the UFC, didn't Paige almost knock her out? But then she tried to take her down, and then she armbarred her and broke her arm.
I do believe, yeah.
So I'd like to see how she handles her on the feet this time, because there's no chance to shoot.
Paige said something that I think opens the door for this conversation.
What's that?
Without it being offensive, is Paige on Instagram said, quote, come for the boobies, stay for the fighting.
There you go.
Because they're both hot, let's be
yeah,
honest.
they're hot as fuck. Well,
Rachael Ostovich is gorgeous.
she has no business fighting bare knuckle. She's got plenty of other opportunities.
You two, these are women that could be legit models if they chose to be. And I mean, neither of them
I mean, they both
disrespect
are.
by calling them hot. So don't give me none of that woke bullshit. I respect them greatly at what they're doing, but they're both
hot.
extremely
It's-
beautiful
yeah,
women.
it's
And
undeniable.
they're bringing it up. All right, so I am.
She's in good for the boobies.
She's a come for the boobies thing. I mean, yeah. Paige's Instagram's been on fire lately, dude. Like, god dang, bro.
Well, I mean, yeah, she has like her own little website where you can do that shit and all that.
Oh, what's that cost, Paul? How much are you paying for that?
Yeah. No, I don't, not paying anything. You know what's funny is it's her and her husband doing they do like naked photo shoots and shit.
Do they?
Yeah.
I mean, I
it's
see
like,
she does
whoa.
some things with her husband. I mean, whatever. If he's down with it, I don't care. You obviously don't care. All of us admiring that your wife is fine.
Yeah,
And we should be able to say that without you
well,
getting
let's just
butthurt.
be honest. He should probably fuck us all up, so he doesn't
Well,
care.
sure. He doesn't kick fucking
He's
everybody's
literally
ass
the
for
number
most
one
part.
contender for the belt in fucking Bellator. He's fighting Musasi next.
And there is some aspect, let's be honest here, of two very gorgeous women squaring off
Well, they
and
have good
fighting,
followings too. Like,
fighting each other that is
Yeah.
appealing to the male primal nature.
sure.
So I think they might get some extra eyeballs.
Yeah.
You know, she says that in jest, but I actually think that will play a small part.
Yeah.
But let's not clown on their skills here. Look, yes, Ostovich has a losing record, and she's also coming out of the UFC, and she was a young fighter in the UFC who
Yeah.
kind of learned there. Okay, so she's coming from the best MMA organization in the world with a losing record. She is a skilled fighter. She definitely
Both
knows how
are
to throw.
Generally young.
Yeah.
Like Paige, I think is like 28.
I mean, she's 4-6. She's
30.
had a grand total of 10 fights, and she had several in the UFC. I don't know what she
Yeah.
was coming in there, but it was low.
Yeah, I think she only had like 2 fights.
So, yeah, shouldn't have a lot of experience here
Yeah.
because that's the way it is. I respect both of them coming to this particular style of fisticuffs. I think it takes a lot of balls. It takes a lot of guts. We were just talking about, Blueface or whatever the hell he is and his TikToker buddy having guts. Well, what about two women who God has blessed with looks that they could parlay into money, instead loving a sport so much that they're like, it's cool, I'm going to go bare knuckle fucking fight people.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's gutsy, man. You gotta
It's dope.
admire that.
Yeah, for sure.
No?
I'm not clowning on their skills.
No.
It's funny that we were just talking about how ridiculous Blueface fighting in bare knuckle is, and then we turn around and we're talking about
A few years ago, you wouldn't think we'd
the
be
main
saying
event
that.
is fucking, yeah, let's just be honest.
Well, who do you think is winning? You're right. Paige
I think
needs
Paige
a win
wins.
here.
I think Paige is just more evolved as a fighter than Rachael is. Rachel's solid, but she's just not. I don't know if she's on Paige's level.
I think we talked about Pearl Gonzalez. She's another female from the UFC who came into the BKFC. Another one who honestly is very, very good looking as well.
And she
whatever
came
this
in
is
did
worth.
well as well.
And she came in like she didn't have that learning curve. She did way better than Paige.
Way better.
Like way better.
Yeah.
Like if she had fought Paige at that level, she'd have fucked her up 6 ways
I
from
do
Sunday.
think so, yeah.
Like
I think she beats Paige right now.
Paige better show something different here. Like she needs to go out and dominate Ostovich really to make a statement that she gets this bare knuckle thing now. But I think that's kind of a one-off for fighters, just because I've seen so many come in and have this learning curve. It's not the fact that they're women. It's not the fact that they're MMA fighters. It's the fact that boxers have this, MMA fighters have this. Everybody coming in has a learning curve with BKFC if they're sticking around.
Yeah.
And I expect that to be the difference here. Paige to get the win.
Could
And
happen.
Ostovich to stick around.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I agree.
Well, I'm definitely watching it. So hopefully people listening will tune in. I've yet to be disappointed by a bare knuckle fighting championship event.
Yeah.
And as I've said many a time, I've been heavily disappointed by UFC events lately. So for whatever that's worth, check it out for $4. You can't really go wrong here. And I think that brings the boxing breakdown to a close and brings us to what's in the cards next. All right, Paul, this is going to wrap up our show here, but we have got both some interesting fights announced that aren't technically in the cards, but we're going to go over them as well since they were big announcements of upcoming deals. But the big show here this upcoming weekend is the long-awaited or despised, depending on how you feel about him, return of former champion T.J. Dillashaw to the 135-pound weight class he once ruled, gave up his belt due to a drug violation at flyweight, and is now fighting Cory Sandhagen in essentially a number one contender's bout.
Sure. The division's kind of in limbo.
It is a little bit in limbo, but essentially that's what it is.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
And I'm basing that on kind of figuring that the Peter Yan Aljamain Sterling fight is already a done deal, and this would be winner.
Is it though? Because Aljo just had neck surgery.
I mean, that's a fluid situation here,
Yeah.
so who knows? But as for this recording, it's the biggest fight in the division that's happening right now.
Absolutely, that's without a doubt.
And a lot of it centers around T.J. Dillashaw, who is an absolute world-class fighter, whether you love him or hate him.
I hate him, but I like his skills.
I mean, he did have what was it? It was an IPO. What did he?
EPO?
EPO, yeah.
Yeah.
Failure when he dropped down to fight Cejudo at flyweight.
Yeah, and there's just some shadiness to that whole scenario as well.
This is something he was long accused of by former rival and Team Alpha male fighter
Cody Garbrandt.
Cody Garbrandt.
And then also he didn't get caught until they developed a new system that caught people who were defeating the other system.
Right, so there's a lot of
There's a lot of
controversy
shadiness in there. Yeah.
and shadiness, but for the record, it's his one and only drug violation.
It's pretty egregious, though.
Yes, he was been out for 2 years, and he did not walk right back into a title shot,
Yeah.
despite not having technically lost the belt, or even having his violation in that weight class. If you want to get real technical,
Yeah.
so
Well, he had to be stripped of the belt, obviously.
yeah, they don't. I mean, they could have kept him champ with a super long interim.
2 years?
they
No
don't-
way. You don't cheat.
They
take
almost
2
did
years
that
off.
with the Henan Barao thing, and was it Favor? I can't remember. But at any rate, he's back.
Yeah.
Exciting fight. It was delayed. It's here now.
Yep.
What are your initial thoughts?
I do think we do need to take a step back, though, and think about what's happened while TJ Dillashaw has been out as well. We've had, the whole Henry Cejudo thing. And then also, you got to remember, TJ Dillashaw didn't just, sit on the couch when he was out either. Like, he had both his shoulders repaired.
Apparently,
Both
he had
his shoulders.
some injuries.
Completely, redone.
Yeah.
And, he's had, 2 surgeries since he's been off. He's, who knows what's going on in his personal life and shit like that since, because when you're running into a situation where you get caught doing steroids or any kind of performance-enhancing drugs, a lot of your sponsors and a lot of people that are, like your ability to make money.
Yeah.
Not only that, just the people that you have that make your money for you. You know what I mean? Like they tend to step away, and I wonder as far as his, how much of a financial hit he took as a part of this suspension. So I do think that does play a big role into it because he could be in a complete different spot mentally and physically because, who knows how his body has responded to 2 surgeries back to back.
Well, he certainly had a lot of time to recover from them. I would hope he got him done fairly soon in his suspension, but I don't know the details on that.
It was 6 months and 6 months. So he's been a year recovered from basically a year and a half for one and a year recovered on one. So, but yeah, I do think at his age it does take a toll on your body, and he's had quite a few fights in his career. What you looking at?
I was just checking his overall record. I mean, we haven't seen him since the Cejudo loss. Before that, he KO'd Garbrandt twice in a row.
Yeah.
And then he decisioned John Lineker. He got his win back against Rafael Sunsao, which was one of his, then he had a split decision loss against Cruz.
Yeah.
Then, of course, the big win against René Barão, which was really when he burst on the scene.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a purple belt in jiu-jitsu, and for whatever a black belt in Bang Muay Thai is worth under Dwayne Ludwig, I mean, I don't know much about Ludwig's system of belts or how legit that is or isn't. He's, of course, an NCAA Division I wrestling champ, right?
Not champ, but he wrestled in Division I, yeah.
Okay. And that's what, California State? So,
Yeah.
and a longtime member of Team Alpha Male before the split, whose punching got really good when he went to Ludwig.
Ooh, I do want to bring up another thing, too, is Cory Sandhagen and TJ Dillashaw have trained together a lot over the years. Do you think that will play a big hand into this as well? Because where's Dwayne Ludwig from? He's from fucking Colorado, where Cory Sandhagen came up in the gym that, in his gym, basically. So a lot of the system...
He's from Aurora, so yeah, he definitely...
A lot of the system that TJ Dillashaw has been running with Ludwig for years has been practiced with and been trained with Cory Sandhagen. So,
yeah, he was with High Altitude Martial Arts and Elevation Fight Team. So, and they're definitely going to be familiar with each other. It's University of Boulder, Colorado, from Mike went. Sandhagen, he's got a considerable height advantage over Dillashaw. And a good reach advantage. Dilly's 5'6", Sandhagen's 5'11". Dilly, yeah, Dilly. Dilly the snake. Remember?
yeah.
I'm not sure what to expect here. I mean, we saw him get subbed so quick by Aljamain Sterling, but then he came back and looked marvelous with Edgar and
his last 2
Marlon
knockouts.
Moraes. I mean,
That Edgar knockout was fucking disgusting.
the flying knee KO of Frankie Edgar.
Like that was just fucking devastating.
He had a spinning wheel kick leading to a punch TKO over Marlon Moraes, which was damn nice.
Yeah.
And before that, it was a couple decisions. He subbed Mario Batista, whatever. He did some TKOs before that too.
Yeah.
But he did look like he turned a corner after the loss.
Yeah, which is
No idea what to expect from Dillashaw, though. But what we do know from him is, regardless how you feel about his cheating, and I guess we'll know how big of a role the EPO played, but up to now, he's been a world-class athlete with an amazing gas tank, enhanced or not. I mean, he's a multi-time world champion. He's damn good. I mean, I don't like the guy either, but, dude, he's good, man. So I'm very intrigued by the fight. I'd kind of like to see him win and fight for the title, because for me, you know how I get with lineal titles. I like things to be unified. And if he earns his way back to the belt and fights for it, then the belt is, in my silly little mind of lineal titles, legitimized again.
I don't think it's as legitimate, though, because considering the guy who beat him also went and took his belt at that same weight class. I agree with you. It muddies the waters that, Cejudo's not there anymore. The one that would make the most sense would be, maybe run back him and Cejudo when he got back. But now that Cejudo's retired and he's,
Well, that was a flyweight, though. I mean,
I know that's a flyweight, but what I'm saying is then Cejudo moved up to bantamweight and won the bantamweight belt after as well.
The vacated one, though.
Yeah,
not the real belt. He won the belt that's around right now. That's the one that's sitting around Aljamain Sterling's waist.
Yeah.
If Dillashaw gets back in the mix, that branch is just unified again.
Yeah, I guess so.
Because he doesn't do it, but Dillashaw could, if he wanted to, run around and call himself the lineal champ still. Not a big deal in boxing, but I mean in MMA as it is in boxing. But I would like ultimately to see that. So for that, petty little
rough
personal reason.
Stripped. He got stripped of the belt. I don't think you can call yourself a lineal champion if you got stripped of the belt. If something happened like with Tyson Fury, where
He
like
was stripped
Tyson
of all four of his belts. So.
Yeah, but that was
stripped
more
of
like a
all four.
retirement situation. He didn't fucking
For drugs, just not in the cage or in the ring.
he
was doing coke.
he was doing coke and shit like
like,
that.
fuck the
But like he
doing
said, I'm
shit.
retired and shit like that, and then like walked away. Like Dillashaw got caught cheating in competition and was stripped of the belt. Whereas like someone like Tyson Fury or someone like that, did drugs outside, never failed an actual drug test.
I'm not suggesting Dillashaw is making these claims. I'm saying for my admittedly somewhat silly reasonings of how I like.
I can't see it because he was
to match
stripped
up.
for in competition cheating. Is the only problem I have with it.
But it was in another way. It wasn't defending his title. It was
I get that,
fighting
but
for a different title in a different weight class. I know that's this weird technical thing, but it's true.
his own fault though.
I'm not defending the guy. He got what he got. And I'm not saying you should get an instant title shot. He didn't. I'm just saying my preference for this reason, not because I'm particularly a fan of it.
I want to see Sandhagen knock him
Is
out.
the titles would unify. So we shall see what happens.
One thing I heard Cory Sandhagen say on Joe Rogan is he said that after the Aljamain Sterling fight, he realized it wasn't good enough to just be technically sound and have a better gas tank than everyone else. It's about going out and putting people out. And since then, he's had 2 devastating knockouts back to back. So,
Hell yeah, he has.
you know what I mean? So I do
he really
think
took
a
that to
change
heart.
in mentality is something that when you're a young fighter like he is, like when it clicks like that, that's a dangerous man. You know what I mean?
I agree, especially when he's so long and rangy for the weight class. He can do a lot of damage that people can't from further away, as we've seen. He's got ridiculous
I could see this fight maybe in the first 2 rounds become a real feeling out process because both guys are real high level and they've trained together and they know how dangerous both of them are. I do think this could be like a little bit of point fighting in the first 2 rounds, and then whoever's down starts taking chances.
So you're ultimately picking Sandhagen.
Yeah, by
All right.
decision.
I'm picking Dillashaw by decision as well. Let's go over the rest of the card just briefly. Honestly, there's not a lot of standouts here. The co-main event, we've got women's bantamweight Aspen Ladd, 9-1, versus Macy Chiasson, who's 8-1 now. I guess it's a decent fight for that division. They're both somewhere down in the lower 15. I like Aspen there, but I'm not really excited by the fight, but I do that. As far as the rest, Darren Elkins is on there. He's always fun to watch. I don't know much about his opponent, Derek Minner.
Yeah, Kyler Phillips is on there too.
Kyler
He's
Phillips
nice.
is fighting. Yeah, he's 9-1. He's exciting. Fighting Rulan Palva, 20-3. Don't know anything about him either.
All right.
Mickey Gall's returning on his card against somebody named Jordan Williams.
Yeah, Jordan Williams is on the Contender Series.
That's somewhat interesting there. I'd like to see Mickey get back to his winning ways. I enjoy Mickey Gall's personality and his fight style most of the time, but I feel like he, not to the degree that Northcutt got it, but he got rushed a bit into the UFC, where he would have been better off waiting a little while.
I do think he falls under.
I mean, he's 6-3 now.
Yeah, but I feel like he does also fall under the category of guys who are kind of have grown up in the UFC, and we haven't seen much evolution from him. You know what I mean? He tends
He's like 9 fights in, but it's just a problem.
But you know what I mean?
Losing,
like but he started fighting in the UFC when he was 2-0, so he's had fucking 7 fights in the UFC, and that's a lot of fights. Like, let's just be honest, 7 fights in the UFC. Some guys don't even end up having 7 fights in the UFC.
You're right.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, I really want to see him do something, but
It's now or never.
It's just on him at the end of the day. You know what I mean? He's got to take that next step.
There's an interesting women's flyweight bout. We've got Macy Barber versus Miranda Maverick. That's a good showdown of a couple of young talents. Barber's 8-2 now.
Coming off 2 losses.
Maverick's 11-2. But both of them have a good future in the division here. I think it's being where Barber is, she really needs a win. Losing 3 in a row is not going to be a good look.
No.
But I expect that to be a pretty exciting fight.
Absolutely.
That's, that about rounds out the card there.
Yeah.
And there brings us to what I find are some pretty exciting fight announcements. Now, we had 7 or 8 fights announced, and some of them weren't the greatest. I mean, it's fun to see Sam Alvey come back, I guess, if you're an Alvey fan. But we're going to focus on 3 that coincidentally happen to be on the same card of September 25th.
Yep.
And I guess we'll just start at the headliner and then go to the co-main, and then we've basically got a co-main.
Yeah.
Again, which I'm super excited about. But
2 title fights in a co-main. Let's call it that.
There we go. 2 title fights in a co-main. But we've got a fight we knew that was coming. It's the 145-pound title fight between champion Alexander Volkanovski versus his tough Ultimate Fighter coach opposite Brian Ortega.
Yeah. Brian Ortega's fucking swept his ass. That's crazy.
I was just going to ask you. I haven't had a chance to get caught up on
he more or less
stuff,
is like, they're like swept through almost. I think there's only one guy on Team Volkanovski who's won.
Do you think that just boiled down to poor picks?
I don't know.
I mean, how much does the coaching really have to affect in some of that? I mean,
Well, I do think Volkanovski has been able to connect with his guys and everything like that. And they've gotten good work in. I just don't know. I don't know. Maybe it is down to the picks or.
Is Ortega the douche that Volkanovski? Because that is one thing I've heard. Is Ortega's like a douche who gets really upset at
he's
little
a douche.
things.
It's just like he ain't letting nothing go. Like he's taking everything offensive as fuck, and it is what it is. Some people are like that, you know. Some people they just have that mentality. It's like, nah, homie, you ain't getting nothing past me.
Hey, maybe that gives him the fuel to feed the fire to go whoop that ass come September. You do what you got to do.
Absolutely.
But
yeah, so this is a fight that's a long time coming as well. You know, it was it supposed to be DC versus Stipe 3, the co-main event, and
Volky got the COVID.
Yeah. And then he was having a hard time recovering, like 100%. So
yeah, problems with his cardio.
Yeah.
But we're here. Still got more time.
We got another month, 2 months to.
So hopefully he's fully recovered by then.
Yeah.
But I'm excited by this fight. I mean, early on, I'm leaning towards Volkanovski personally, but we'll dive into that.
But Ortega looked great in that Korean Zombie fight.
Boy, there's no kidding there.
Like, I don't know what happens in this fight, to be honest.
This one's got me excited, though. I talk some shit on UFC, but that's a great fight right here.
Yeah.
On the same card, okay, a fight I'm not as excited about, but we've got the women's 125-pound champion and all-time great Valentina Shevchenko defending against Lauren Murphy. look, I don't think Lauren Murphy stands a snowball's chance in hell of beating Shevchenko unless Shevchenko has some bizarre off night.
Yeah.
It's no discredit to her.
But she's a formidable contender.
But she's very, yeah, that's just what I was going to say. She is a great fighter and a formidable contender. And I expect that to be a good fight.
Yeah.
Lauren Murphy's earned her shot. It's a new face as well, which is always good. It's a different style for Valentina to go against. Lauren Murphy's extremely tough. And
Shevchenko, I think, is just unbeatable at that weight class,
too.
to be honest. Kind of the same way I view Nunes. Both them. The only one who's beaten anyone is each other. Like, that's just where I feel.
And Shevchenko has never shown any sign of this.
She got taken down once.
Yeah, I mean, those turn into the storylines.
She lost a round, Jarrod. What are you talking about?
She doesn't show any signs of not taking things seriously. She's not out partying.
No.
She seems to respect the game very much. These things that seem to befall she's a long-time champion now at this point. The pitfalls, I don't see any of them in anywhere in her path whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I don't see her losing like that. She's going to go on like I believe, an Anderson Silva type run. Yeah. In her division. Yeah. For those of you listening, you might wonder that was 16 title defenses in a row.
Which is nuts.
Yeah. That's insane. And then that brings us to the best fight on the card.
Oh, yeah.
Which should be a headlining event, but thank God they've done it again for another Diaz brother, dude. Now it's Nick in his return, getting a 5-round non-title fight, non-main event.
This is a
against
perfect fight.
Robbie fucking Lawler.
It's a perfect fight. It's a rematch.
It's beautiful.
It's a good
He
fight.
KO'd fucking Robbie Lawler back in the day.
Back in the dizzy day.
Yeah. Oh.
Way back. I think that was like Robbie's one fight in the UFC was against Nick, and then he went off to do all the other shit he did, and then came back to the UFC later.
Nick, of course, went long time, or not long time, but the famous Strikeforce champ.
Yeah.
Long time considered one of the very best welterweights in the world.
Shit, we haven't seen him since the Silva fight.
Yeah, since that just crazy fight against Anderson Silva, where he winds up testing positive for cannabis. Silva winds up testing positive for steroids. And
now it's legal, and there's no sanctions in the whole state the next time he fights.
Now it would have been fine. It would have been a
crazy.
Diaz win.
No, he lost to fucking Silva.
Well, Silva would have been disqualified for the drugs.
Oh, shit. Yeah, you're right. Oh, wow. That is true. That is true.
So
It might have been no contest.
no,
still.
it might have still been. Irregardless, Nick is back in a fight that's much different than that one.
Yeah.
5 rounds, too.
He looks like he's in tip-top shape.
He
too.
does. I didn't think they get it done, bro. I wasn't a believer.
And I'm sorry, but Robbie's looked really bad.
Robbie's
As of
not
late.
looked well lately either.
Yeah.
This is a winnable fight for Nicholas Diaz.
Yeah. And what if this reignites the flame? Because he's, 35? Maybe.
36.
Is he?
Yeah, but it's not, I mean, okay, he's had his party time, which is well documented on Instagram. Okay.
His own, of course.
Yeah, his own Instagram is well documented, his drinking exploits here in Las Vegas and his party exploits. But he's still fucking Nick Diaz, and he was still in decent shape
He was
through all
getting
of
fucked
that.
up in training and all these different fucking penthouses he was staying in.
Yeah.
Shit, he'd bring mats and shit.
He's still doing, triathlons and
Oh, yeah,
crazy
he's still
bike
doing all that
rides
bullshit,
and all
yeah,
this
for sure.
shit. So
Isn't he vegan too or something like that?
yeah, they're both vegetarians. They might be full vegans. I think it's just vegetarian, but
Yeah.
we haven't seen him in so long. I'm so glad that he's getting paired up with somebody like Robbie Lawler, and not when they were trying to get him with
Masvidal?
Or no, I didn't mind that one either. But for a minute they were trying that Chimaev, Khamzat Chimaev fight.
dumb.
Don't do that. He's gonna get mauled by that guy. He's gonna take him down and beat on him.
I don't think so, but yeah.
Well, it could have happened, and it would have just been, why would you sacrifice Nick to some fucking, a guy who hasn't been in the cage in
young guy.
6 years,
Yeah.
to some young, hungry fucking guy? Like, no. You pair him against Robbie Lawler. Yes.
Yeah, that makes
That's
sense.
what we fucking do here.
All right, but let's just say he goes in and steamrolls Robbie Lawler. Then what?
Well, then he's going to be talking about title shots.
That's what I'm saying. That's the only thing he's gonna say. He's gonna go straight for Usman. He's gonna be like, "Let's go." But like, I don't think that holds any merit at all. And let's just be honest.
The problem is, look, and I fucking love Nick Diaz.
I don't know anybody who doesn't. Let's
Right.
just be honest.
But his last win, and I had to verify this, his last mixed martial arts win was against fucking BJ Penn at UFC 137 in 2011.
Bro, 10 years.
So
It's damn near 10 years of the day because he's
Yeah.
fighting September 25th. That's October what?
11th.
October. Yeah, dude.
Yeah. No, that was October 29th of 2011.
Yeah, so a month away from being fucking 10 years to the day. So he's got to get that win in real quick.
February 4th of 2012, he lost a decision to Carlos Condit in a fight which he felt Condit ran from him the whole time, which an
Yeah.
argument can be made for that. Condit backed up that entire motherfucking fight.
It up to the point to where they gave him the GSP fight.
Right. So, yeah, to the point where he still got the title shot against GSP, who campaigned for it as well.
Yeah.
And then he lost the decision to GSP in 2013. And then we didn't see him until 2016 or 2015, January 31st. He comes back for this crazy fight against Anderson Silva at 185 pounds where
Both
bizarre
guys were
things
clowning
were
each
happening.
other. And
laying down on the – I mean, we had Nick laying down on the mat and just waving to Silva.
Same
to come.
thing with like Anderson was like going up on the cage and like wave like it was weird.
So if Nick goes in there and beats the shit out of Robbie Lawler in any shape, yes, he will immediately call for a fight with Usman.
Yeah.
And then Nate will come on and campaign for the exact same shit.
Then they'll fight each other. I'm just kidding.
The thing is, Usman is so hungry for a big fight.
Yeah, Usman just wants a payday, so he'll take
He
that.
will
Nick
be like,
Diaz fight.
sure, I'll
Like,
take
fuck
that.
Nick Diaz up for right now.
So,
Like
it could happen.
it could.
Nick Diaz could win this fight and go right into a title shot here.
It could because also Usman's fought everyone. And then Leon Edwards is still out in the rain.
And apparently Colby is too now.
Yeah.
I mean, that talk seems to have died down. It was going to fight
It seems
Colby.
like it's completely not happening at all anymore. Like they're talking about Colby and fucking what's his name now? What was the one I sent you the other day? It was Colby and George.
Yeah.
They were gonna run it in like fucking November or something.
So there is a path to a Nick Diaz title shot against Usman.
There is.
And I'm not against it. I mean, sportingly, it makes no sense
It
whatsoever.
holds zero merit.
Zero.
And it's all the reasons why we hate the fucking pay-per-view next month. But it's
Yes.
Nick Diaz. So fucking...
But it's fucking 209, bitch. So, I think that would be an amazing fight. So, I'm very, very excited. I love all these announcements here, all these fights that are in the cards, Paul. Fucking Nick Diaz, Robbie Lawler.
Yeah.
Having 2 title fights on top of that is just a bonus. I mean, for once, I'm not going to bitch about shelling
Damn,
out
dude,
70
that fight
bucks.
was almost 20 years ago, huh?
That's crazy.
When was Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler?
Oh, I've got it right here. Well, let's go here. Look at these names: Paul Daly, KJ Noon,
Right, fuck.
Frank Shamrock.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember how mad he got Frank Shamrock? Because he was like flipping him
Dude,
off.
Gleason Tybalt, you forget he fucking beat Gleason Tybalt all the way back in 2006.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, he's got losses to Joe Riggs. We were just talking about Joe Riggs.
Remember
you know.
him and Joe Riggs fought each other in the
yeah.
fucking in the hospital after.
Dude, it was UFC 47 on April 2nd, 2004. He KO'd Robbie Lawler.
2004. Now we're gonna go all the way. Jesus Christ, that's crazy,
That is nuts, man.
dude. I was.
He left the IFC.
You ever seen that? You see that meme that Max Holloway posted? I felt it so much. It was like me watching Diaz versus Robbie Lawler 1, and it was a picture of his son. And then he's like, me watching it now, and it's a picture of him.
Yeah, dude.
Like, that's how fucking long that shit
I
was, bro.
know.
Shit is long as fuck. Well, I can't wait for it.
I can't wait for it
honest.
either. That's
can't.
exciting, man. That wraps up our show for today, my friend.
Yep.
It's been great. Well, I'm so excited we get to end it on a Nick Diaz possibility of a title shot. Let's keep our fingers crossed, everybody.
I think it's very out there, but I'll go with it.
I hope you've enjoyed the show. You can catch us wherever you get your podcast from. All that information, where to find us and everything else is located in one handy spot. Where's that at, Paul?
SWATmade.com. Support the podcast, motherfuckers.
Thanks, everybody.
Peace.